You've spent your entire life with yourself, every thought, every emotion, every memory, and yet, there are parts of you you've never met. That sounds strange, doesn't it? But think about this. Why do you sometimes react in ways that surprise even you? Why does a simple comment ruin your entire day? Why do you keep choosing the same type of person, even when you promised yourself you wouldn't? If you truly knew yourself, none of that would feel confusing. Most people don't lack intelligence. They lack awareness. You know your favorite food, your music taste, your political opinion. But do you know your emotional patterns? Do you know the exact reason rejection feels unbearable? Or why you go silent instead of speaking up? Or why success sometimes makes you anxious instead of proud? Knowing yourself isn't about preferences, it's about patterns. And patterns are usually invisible to the person living inside them. Your invisible patterns are running your life. Every human being operates on psychological loops. You think you're making free choices. Often, you're repeating familiar ones. Have you ever noticed how some people always end up in similar relationships? Different faces, same dynamic. Maybe you attract emotionally unavailable partners. Maybe you always become the caretaker. Maybe you chase people who pull away. That's not coincidence. Your brain prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. Familiar feels safe, even when it hurts. If you grew up in chaos, calm can feel boring. If you grew up earning love through performance, rest can feel lazy. If you grew up unseen, you may unconsciously choose people who don't fully see you, because that's what your nervous system recognizes as home. This is attachment programming, and it doesn't live in your conscious mind. It lives in your body. That tightness you feel when someone pulls away, that panic when someone doesn't reply fast enough, that urge to fix everything when someone is upset. Those reactions were learned. They once protected you, but now they may be running you. Self-knowledge begins when you stop asking, "Why does this always happen to me?" and start asking, "What part of me keeps choosing this?" That question changes everything. The shadow you avoid. There is a version of you that you show the world, and there is a version you hide. Psychology calls this the shadow. It's not evil, it's just unexamined. Your shadow contains the traits you were taught were unacceptable: anger, neediness, jealousy, ambition, sensitivity. If, as a child, anger got you punished, you may now call yourself easygoing. If expressing needs led to rejection, you may now say, "I don't need much," but the emotion didn't disappear. It went underground. And what we bury doesn't die. It leaks, sometimes as passive aggression, sometimes as sudden outbursts, sometimes as judgment toward others. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The traits that irritate you most in other people often reflect parts of yourself you've disowned. If you strongly judge attention seekers, ask yourself, when was the last time you allowed yourself to need attention? If you judge selfish people, ask yourself, when was the last time you chose yourself without guilt? Projection is not weakness, it's information. Your shadow is not your enemy. It's the part of you waiting to be integrated. Self-knowledge requires courage, because you cannot grow by only looking at your strengths. Your triggers are time machines. Have you ever reacted to something small in a very big way? That's a trigger. A trigger is not about the present moment. It's a time machine. When someone ignores you and you feel intense panic, that reaction may not belong to today. It may belong to a younger version of you. The brain stores emotional memory differently than logical memory. You might not consciously remember the first time you felt abandoned, but your nervous system does. That's why your body reacts before your thoughts catch up. Heart racing, jaw tightening, sudden defensiveness. Most people try to control their reactions by controlling others. Don't talk to me like that. You always ignore me. Why do you make me feel this way? But emotional maturity begins when you pause and ask, How old do I feel right now? Sometimes the answer isn't your current age. Triggers are invitations. They point toward unfinished emotional work, and when you begin to understand them, you stop being controlled by them. You move from reaction to response, and that shift changes your relationships entirely. The strength you don't see. There's another part of self-knowledge people overlook: your resilience. You adapted to survive. If you became hyper-independent, it may have been because no one was reliable. If you became highly empathetic, it may have been because reading moods kept you safe. If you became funny, productive, perfect, invisible, loud, strong, detached, those were strategies, not flaws. But survival strategies can become prisons if never updated. The trait that once protected you can later limit you. Hyper-independence can block intimacy. Perfectionism can block joy. People-pleasing can block authenticity. But here's what matters. You are not broken. You are patterned. And patterns can be rewritten. Self-awareness is not about blaming your past. It's about understanding it. When you see your patterns clearly, shame loses power. Compassion replaces it, and growth becomes possible. Becoming conscious is a choice. Here's the hard part. Once you become aware of your patterns, you can't unsee them. And awareness creates responsibility. You can't say, "That's just how I am," when you now understand where it comes from. Self-knowledge isn't a personality quiz. It's ongoing work. It's catching yourself mid-reaction. It's choosing silence instead of escalation. It's saying, "This feels familiar. Let me slow down." It's uncomfortable. Growth always is. But it's also freeing, because the moment you move from unconscious pattern to conscious choice, you reclaim your power. You stop repeating relationships that hurt you. You stop betraying your own needs. You stop reacting from old wounds, and something shifts. You feel less chaotic inside, less triggered, less desperate for validation, less afraid of being alone. Not because life changed, but because you did. So, here's the real question. Do you want comfort, or do you want awareness? Because comfort protects the ego. Awareness transforms the self. If this resonated, sit with one question tonight. What pattern in my life feels normal, but actually costs me peace? That question alone can change your future. And if you're ready to understand yourself on a deeper level, stay with this journey. Because the most important relationship you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. I'll see you in the next video.